Hi, this is Mrs. Chavez. We're starting on section 2 of chapter 11. We're looking at the nature of cities. Urban ecologists think that cities form as a result of natural growth. Now, this natural growth refers to expansion, immigration, and succession. Succession is when new people move in and replace those that move out. And this is very much related to geography and the natural environment of a city. So today we're going to begin to explore the nature of cities and how that can lead to their growth and development. The structures and functions of any region varies in terms of function, history of development, as well as the age of the town. Some towns and cities specialize in certain functions, and they're known for specific activities, products, or services. For example, Hershey's, Pennsylvania. You can imagine what that's known for. Orlando, Florida. Guess what that's known for? However, each town performs a number of functions. On the basis of functions, most cities and towns can be broadly classified into, say, administrative towns, cities like Washington, D.C., industrial towns like Detroit, Michigan, transport cities like New York and Los Angeles, commercial towns like Chicago and Silicon Valley and Hollywood, mining towns, military towns like El Paso, and religious and cultural towns, and also tourist towns like Las Vegas. The Industrial Revolution started in Britain in the late 18th century, and through raw materials, the improvement of machinery and transportation, this created many more factories, and this led to the start of the Industrial Revolution. Now, while we consider it a great achievement in history, many people in Europe at the time suffered through the new changes. In fact, the revolution changed almost every aspect of their lives. Many new workers had to migrate to the cities for work, and here they faced difficulties with pollution, health, disease, poverty, crime. These social issues were all the result of the Industrial Revolution and changes to the city. We can't help but ask ourselves this question: how did industrialization transform cities and the urban experience? Post-industrial growth occurred after industrialization began to slow down. And as it grew in Asia and Latin America, it began to slow in the more developed countries, and they transitioned into a service industries which dominate with this strongly developed quaternary sector and footloose industries that are often there. Footloose industries are industries where you can put your storefront anywhere because you can carry those products to your marketplace very easily. For instance, diamonds. Diamonds are very easy to transport. You can put them in your pocket, get on a plane, and transport diamonds to any place that you want to go. So these industries open up in these pleasant open spaces, and sometimes in the middle of a city, but oftentimes, as we've seen more and more, on the edges of the city. So what's the difference between site and situation? Well, the site is the actual location of a settlement on the earth, and the term includes the physical characteristics of the landscape that are specific to that area. Now, site factors include landforms, climate, vegetation, availability of water, soil quality, minerals, and wildlife. Examples of site factors include whether an area is protected by mountains or if there's a natural harbor present. Historically, such factors led to the development of major cities worldwide. New York City, for example, is located where it is because of several site factors. As people arrived in North America from Europe, they began to settle in this area because it had coastal locations with a natural harbor. There was also an abundance of fresh water in the nearby Hudson River, and small creeks as well as raw materials for building supplies. The site of an area can also create a challenge for its population. There's a good example with the small Himalayan nation of Bhutan. Located within the world's highest mountain range, the terrain of the country is extremely rugged, and that makes transportation within the country very difficult. This is combined with the incredibly harsh climate in many areas of the country, and that's made much of the population settle along the rivers and the highlands just south of the Himalayas. Only 2% of the land in the nation is arable, with much of it located in the highlands. And so making a living in this nation is very challenging. The situation, on the other hand, is defined as the location of a place relative to its surroundings and other places. Factors include an area's situation are like the accessibility of a location, the extent of a place's connection with another place, how close an area may be to the raw materials if they're not located on right at that site. Now, site and situation played a significant role in a city's development, both within its boundaries and the world stage. This phenomena has shaped history, and it's part of the reason why places like London, Tokyo, New York, Los Angeles were able to grow into these large megalopolis cities that they are today. And it's important to know that these possibilities and activities exist in an area when you're beginning to develop a city. You need to know about the distribution of raw materials. You need to know where the market areas are. Where's the agricultural regions? Is there going to be enough land that's arable to grow crops on? Are the mountains a challenge? And the places to which it's connected through the rivers and oceans and the transportation system. Now, cities don't operate in a vacuum. They're connected to each other, but they're also connected to the surrounding areas around them, the hinterlands. So urban centers are functionally connected to other cities and to the rural areas. Cities don't exist just to provide services for themselves. They couldn't survive if they were just providing for themselves, but they also provide for others outside of it. The urban center is the consumer center. It's where the farmer is going to go to market to sell his food. It's where you're going to process materials and make something out, manufacture something out of it. It's an accumulator, and it's also a dispenser of goods and services. You go to the city if you need to go to the doctor, oftentimes, or you need to go to the hospital. It depends on outside areas for its essential supplies and as a market for its products and activities. Now, cities can't just be anywhere. In order to perform all those tasks that we just talked about that support it, the city has to be located in an efficient place, and that is called centrality. There are physical characteristics of the site that we talked about before. The water transportation was an extremely important one. When most cities were built, they were built on water, around water, or close by water, because that was the major transportation at the time. And most cities in America and most cities in Europe are located along waterways. So once the railroads came into being, though, in the middle of the 19th century, then cities were able to spread out, and they were able to move to other places because they were easily connected. Placements located near resources and productive regions and transportation were become the network of the country. So what's the economic-based theory? This was developed by noticing that the well-being of a small, remote, resource-dependent towns was proportional to the value of goods that they sold to the outside markets. As I mentioned before, a city needs to be able to, in order to survive, to be able to sell their products to markets outside of themselves, not just themselves. That's very sustainable for a while, but not for very long. So let's look at the basic sector. That's the population that's employed in a city that is engaged in the production of goods or the performances of services that are going to go to people outside of the city itself, not just for consumption within the city. That's your basic sector. These workers are engaged in what we call export activities. Their efforts result in money flowing into the community. One of the major ones here in El Paso that's an export activity are the truckers. When we are a break of bulk point where things come across the border and are broken down and put into trucks and sent out to the rest of the United States. So this sector makes up an economic base of the community. It's an economic base for our community. A lot of people are involved in the trucking industry, and it's essential to the health of the local economy. Now, the non-basic sector is also essential. These are workers who support themselves by producing goods for the people who actually live in the city. And their efforts are necessary to the well-being of and the successful operation of the city because even though they may not generate a lot of money, they're generating enough money to be able to meet the needs of the people in the city. The money is circulated within the community, and they're responsible for the functioning of the city. We're talking about small mom and pop businesses here. We're not talking about Walmart or Target, because oftentimes that money moves outside the city and stays outside the city. Mom and pop businesses, when we talk about supporting local business, that's what we're talking about. Businesses that are going to funnel their money right back into the area, into their business, and into the area in which they are supported by the community. So we're looking at the multiplier effect here. Now, take a look at this chart that we have right here in front of you. We'll start where the government announces that they're going to have extra spending on education. We're looking at a domino effect here. Schools can then employ extra teachers, and then new teachers are going to buy new computers, and then the computer stores are going to employ more workers. And then the new computer store workers are going to spend money in the restaurants, and the restaurants are going to hire more chefs and waiters. That's called a domino effect, and that's also called a multiplier effect. When a news media report that a new manufacturing plant will create a certain number of jobs in addition to those at the plant, they're referring to the multiplier effect. And the size of the multiplier effect is determined by the community's basic and non-basic ratio to each other. Okay? And that's it for today. Thank you.